We do continue to be concerned about the need for both the Iranians and the Saudis to de-escalate the situation in the Middle East. That we're urging all sides to show some restraint and to not further inflame tensions that are on quite vivid display in the region.
White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest earlier today discussing tension in the Middle East after Saudi Arabia breaks diplomatic ties with Iran. This escalating dispute comes after Saudi Arabia executed 47 alleged terrorists, including a notable Iranian Shiite cleric. Iranian protesters quickly started retaliating, ransacking the Saudi embassy in Tehran. In response, Saudi Arabia gave Iranian diplomatic personnel 48 hours to leave the country. To talk about yet another situation unfolding there in the Middle East, let's welcome in former Defense Department spokesman J.D. Gordon. He joins us from Newsmax Washington, as does retired U.S. Army Colonel Patrick Murray. Patrick worked alongside General David Petraeus during the surge, and he is also the author of the book, Government is the Problem. Colonel, we've got an international problem now with this thing uncorked between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Is this Shia versus Sunni, or is this a reaction to President Obama's indulgent attitude toward the Iranians?
Well, J.D., I'd say it's a little bit of both. This is nothing new. The sectarian violence in the Middle East has been going on between the Sunnis and the Shias for what, about 1,400 years? But I'll tell you what, the Obama administration's diplomatic promiscuity and his desire to jump in bed with the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism, because why? Because he's legacy shopping, that has exacerbated the situation.
All right, as we're keeping track of this thing, J.D., Bahrain and the Sudan have also severed relations with Iran, and the United Arab Emirates downgraded its diplomatic status there. Will we see more countries back Saudi Arabia, and will it come down to the Shia-Sunni split?
Hi, J.D. Happy New Year. Yes, I think we will. I think the allies of Saudi Arabia will rally around them. You know, the Saudis and the Iranians have been fighting a proxy war since the 1970s in particular. They're fighting now in Yemen, Syria, Iraq by proxy. And I think that Saudi's now getting a little taste of what the United States got in the 1979 Tehran mishap, where they basically ended up taking over our embassy and having our hostages for over a year. So I think they're seeing a taste of that Iranian violence. That I think that both of those, frankly, though, JDs, both the Saudis and the Iranians are responsible for the real mess we have with global jihad. The Saudis have spent over $100 billion in exporting radical Islam. And one of the reasons they export that radical Islam, their Wahhabi Sunni version, is because they don't want the Iranians exporting their revolutionary type of Shia Islam. So both are peas in a pod, the Saudis and the Iranians. And I think we should call them both out, not just the Iranians.
So, Colonel, it sounds like J.D. has set up a kind of a battle of the undesirables, a couple of nations not exactly angels by any stretch of the imagination. We spoke earlier about President Obama's feckless approach toward Iran and that nuclear deal. Let me talk about another president, Vladimir Putin. Do you expect to see Russia step up its involvement in the Middle East, or will Putin be smart enough to stay out of this tete-a-tete between Saudi Arabia and Iran?
Well, I think Putin and Russia, they've been gaining influence in the Middle East for the first time since the 1970s, and that's because largely the Obama administration has gone AWOL over there. So this is a perfect example, a perfect opportunity for Putin, who has very close ties with Iran, as well as gaining ties with Saudi Arabia and other countries, to include Egypt in the Middle East. So this is a perfect opportunity for them to step in, fill the void, and try to play peacemaker between these two sectarian conflicts going on.
J.D., you've had plenty of experience over at the Pentagon, and I'm just wondering, will we continue to hear this kind of pronouncement from the presidential press secretary, and gee, can't these guys get along, and we're monitoring the situation? Will there continue to be a vacuum involving the U.S., indecision, a lack of strategy, and the indulgence I referenced earlier towards Iran?
Well, yes, as long as President Obama is in the White House, he wants to disengage from the world. You know, he has this ivory tower view that's common on universities these days where they think America's the problem. So therefore, if we withdraw from the world, things will get better. Actually, things get a lot worse. So as long as President Obama is in office, you can't really expect any kind of leadership that's going to be in our interest. Having said that, this Saudi and Iranian proxy war since the 1970s has ensnared every single U.S. president. All of them have been reactive. A lot of people want to say, well, blame Bush for the Iraq war, blame Obama for withdrawing all our troops. This is much bigger than Bush or Obama. Every single president has been struck by terrorism, whether it's from the Iranians or whether it's from the Saudi-led Wahhabist-type ideology. Every single president struggled under this. I just hope we have better leadership with the next president going forward, and we can confront radical Islam from where it's coming from, and that's both Saudi Arabia and Iran.
Patrick Murray, 30 seconds. What do you say to the guy sitting at home watching this going, Saudi Arabia, Iran, a pox on both their houses. Let's stay the heck out of it.
Well, I don't think that's possible, JD. The so-called implementation day of this reckless Iranian nuclear deal that we cut with them is coming up anytime soon, and that's when Iran tells us that they're complying with the criteria of the agreement, and then they're going to get about a $150 billion windfall. We need to walk that back, and we need to put a pause on that before we continue to facilitate the world's largest state sponsor of terror.
And we will have to leave it right there. Colonel Patrick Murray in Washington, and likewise in Newsmax Washington, former Defense Department spokesman J.D. Gordon. Gentlemen, you have our thanks. You heard what they had to say. What do you think? We'd love to hear from you. Send your comments to me at newsmaxtv.com/comments. Coming up, President Obama, executive action allowing more foreign workers here. John Miano will talk about it next.